Wait, isn't everybody at war over atheism?
Atheism? No, we've learned to get rid of all the isms in our time. Yes, long ago we realized isms are great for those who are rational, but in the hands of irrational people, isms always lead to violence.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Tim Sits in a side extra bedroom and tries to do an episode before he sweats too much and has to take another shower. It's basically been my life for the past couple of days. Is sweating, stopping, doing whatever I'm doing, then going out maybe to go shopping or something like that, buy food, and then just immediately starting to sweat again. If you're anywhere on the eastern side of the United States, it's probably pretty much been the same thing with you. I think Britain's getting fucked up with the heat right now. But that's not what this episode or even at all this show. We don't normally talk about weather. I just figured I'd throw something more into the introduction and not completely sound like a robot every time I do these intros of just hitting the exact same points. But I'm just going to do it now, so you have an extra minute before the intro, just to kind of get to know me. If this is your first time, most likely you're coming to this from knowing either me or just hearing about the whole podcast thing through the You, Me, and BTC podcast. We do that every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We do a live show there, which, if you want to have any kind of an impact on the show beyond being able to just tweet at me, you can get there. We don't really have a very high barrier. We don't really have a very steep barrier to entry. We'll pretty much read anything you put on there. One of the co-hosts has taken his clothing off, not even for any money, just for the sake of, I guess, doing something to chat things. I don't know if he has some kind of weird submission thing he's into, but whatever. It gets interesting, I guess, is what all you could really say there. If you want to see a bone-thin man take his shirt off. But yeah, we do that every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. It's a hangout. It's normally me, Daniel Brown, Zach Vole. It's more of a hangout. It is centered around Bitcoin and stuff like that and everything. But we'll talk about all kinds of stuff. I think last week, I don't know. It really kind of just goes everywhere. We'll go on tangents for maybe an entire show, or maybe we'll just do news. We have guests on a lot too. We had Adam Meister, I think. Yeah, Meister on a couple 2 weeks ago, I think. And then I did his show a week and a half ago, so that was nice. It was nice getting on a show where I wasn't listening to Daniel yell at me or just having to hear my own voice. Then I mentioned him, but Zach Vole, he does a podcast called The Coin Pod every single Tuesday, I think, comes out, where that's interview type show, very much centered on Bitcoin, centered on cryptocurrency. They always talk about something new. That's also going to be your best show to get any kind of actual factual information. There's something there. I need to work on that as far as a brand for something, but don't steal it. Zach does a very good job. He interviews people all the time. He's up to 20 episodes right now. He just talked to a Canadian, so the most recent episode is Bitcoin A. So yeah, I mean, he's racist, but whatever. Now that I'm done shitting, he does it every Tuesday. You can get him at Zach Vole on Twitter. You can get me at Baker's Dozen 93. But that's, if you're interested in Bitcoin, if you're interested in seeing how cryptocurrencies work kind of in general, tune in. He always has a good guest on that you're going to learn something. You're not really going to learn anything on this podcast that I'm doing now. And then we have the last podcast, because we have, 3 of them now? No, 4. I'm sorry. I can't even count. It's called, Unpopular Opinions. That has nothing to do with Bitcoin, nothing to do with really anything we talk on You, Me, and BTC, except sometimes they do cover something that's in the kind of popular consciousness, which never mind. But again, if you want to hear Hangout, that's 2 guys. They're both cool. And I think last couple episodes they did old video games. I think the last one they did was about things you liked as a kid, but now you either don't like or hate now. But yeah, check them out. And the reason why we're able to do all these extra shows for you and not just be doing them completely for free are Chronologic. Chronologic has been very generous to us. Check them out at chronologic.com. They are an Ethereum-based I'm going to talk about this a little bit today, as far as, because what I'm talking about has to do with like social change and trying to get social change. I'm not so much for the complaining and then they'll give it to. It's not at chronologic.com. It's chronologic.network. If any of you actually do, go check them out. But they're actually working on stuff that, now it could fail. Ethereum could always fall apart, but at least working on the technology, so then even if this time it doesn't work, we can build off that afterwards, but we can get rid of a centralized kind of ledger for doing contracts and debt contracts and anything like that. And the more we can take out of needing a centralized figure for it, I think that's winning a battle for pretty much anybody who cares about individual liberty. I would think, like, because you do have to have a certain amount of autonomy, and if you don't have to constantly just go to the government and say your work involves a lot of contracts, which everybody's does, but a lot of times those contracts can be behind the behind the scene, or somebody else does it. But the more stuff you can do in your own life and the more stuff you can be involved in, I think the better. To a certain extent, I get that it's annoying to have to do certain things, but if you're already going to do the contract stuff, if you can do it on something like a decentralized blockchain instead of having to go to a courthouse, or even just involve that whole system of power anyway, I think that is a good step in the right direction. So check them out. Again, that's chronologic.network. And like I said, I want to talk about that as well. I want to talk about, I guess, social change, and I'm sure plenty of this is going to be wrong. I'm sure plenty of this is going to be oversimplified and everything, but fuck you. I'm allowed to have an opinion. And again, this is like part of the reason why I don't think it matters, is because nobody has, like, I don't actually believe that anybody has, like, concrete set of things they figure out that this is exactly the best way to do anything, because you eventually do have to settle on something. That's not wrong either, but I am saying that nobody has something that they fully, at least it seems this way, and I don't know if this is just from where I am or who I've grown up around, but it doesn't seem like anybody has anything that they're like, no, you do not cross this line ever, and you do not do, whether it's the government or it's another person. A lot of people, like, I would think that this is pretty much universal with people, that there is that the whole, if a frog, you throw them in a pot of boiling water, they jump out. If you don't, if you warm it up slowly, then they'll allow it. Because as, like, and this is why what made me think about it recently was thinking about taxes, where most people will still defend the idea of taxes and we need it for a society to work. We need, it's like they just compare it to like paying dues in an organization, which I get that the argument, well, taxation is slavery, it doesn't, so what? It doesn't matter. Like, what are you going to do? But I think that is the issue, because you can't go from you couldn't go back in the 1800s from that kind of tax rate to what we're at now. And I don't really think the government, it's like people always want to point out, well, the government just provides so many more things to people. I guess you could say that with roads, and I guess you could say that with water, maybe. But it's like, I pay for all of those things anyway. Like, you don't just get those things. I mean, they're definitely, like, they're charging enough, I would think, at least. But it's like, what is enough as far as like where people get pushed to? And I'm asking this kind of genuinely, especially in America, because we have that first history of breaking from Britain, of just kind of flipping out about taxes, and then like right after the country got started, our government turned around and had a higher tax on whiskey, and then go and went and put down a rebellion. Then we have the Civil War, and I'm sure like there's been issues, but there haven't been like and maybe this is because we haven't been around for that long, but there haven't been overthrows of like the U.S. government. The Civil War is the closest thing, but we don't have a history where it seems like every other country has at least had one of those times where everyone's gone, fuck it, let's just kill all the rich people, or let's at least turn it upside down. I guess England, not necessarily. They had their kind of war over with Protestants and Catholics, but even like the Civil War wasn't about attacking the government. The Civil War was like the government saying you can't go anyplace. Like that. There. I think there is a difference, and I think that's a valid difference to make there. But it doesn't seem like, and you see these protest videos from like the Ukraine and then the Arab Spring and everything happen, and I just don't see something like that happening here. We have all the protests, we have all the kind of mouth service that we've given to things, but it never seems like it gets that crazy against the police. We have, like, again, this is another thing I was just paying attention to, and I guess what I'm talking about today is protests or like demonstrations, and kind of I have no real problem, because at least like people in other countries, like if the police beat them up or the police pepper spray them, like you'll see videos of Ukrainians or Russians just pepper spraying the police right back. Not to say that's a good idea. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be at the protest to begin with. Like, as far as people taking a lot, I will take pretty much anything as long as they don't shoot me. Like, I'm not standing up to people, so I guess kudos just for going out and doing it. But it doesn't seem like we have that kind of a strength to any of these demonstrations in the United States, at least for a while. I don't know. I was born in '93. I haven't seen any like giant protests where like people were like attacking, like the police were called in force and the people just ran up and just fought them. Pretty much, we have a lot of two different sides, because instead of kind of, and people want to, like, they make the point now because it's in the news all the time about like Trump supporters and then the left like fighting, or them like protests and happening. But I don't think it's gotten necessarily worse. I don't know. I don't feel like the people around me are more divided. You see a lot of people online. I even did the episode last week about people refusing service to certain people because of who they are, but I don't see that shit around me. I don't see it enough that I really think it's that much worse than it was maybe 10 years ago. It might even be better, but I think we see it a lot more. But it's always over, like, we don't fight against what's actually the issue with, I think, what we do in America is, instead of going, hey, let's like actually do something illegal, maybe that's because we've kind of been given this whole like, oh, well, your free speech is guaranteed, but just do it over in this little pen that's away from what you actually want to achieve. And this also kind of ties into what first made me want to do this episode was, is any kind of this protest, are these demonstrations where people go, like the Tea Party went and walked around or had like open carry rifles, what does the shit do? What does any of this do? What does marching around for someone who got shot by the police do? Like, oh, we're angry. Oh, I'm sure they know you're angry. Like, I'm sure the police aren't just like, yep, no, this is fine. They just don't give a shit. Like, it's not they go, oh yeah, I'm just going to shoot this guy because I think everyone will be fine with it. Their issue is not, like, of course they try to cover it up. They try to make it not seem as big. They're not going to come out and just, yep, we killed him. Yep, that was on purpose. We definitely tried to do that. They're not going to like incite stuff, but they don't care if you walk around a little bit, damage some private property, or do, like, as long as people don't do anything, as long as people don't threaten the kind of rule of the police, or even, like, I mean, especially money stuff. Anytime money gets involved, they're very quick to shut things down. But they don't care if you destroy something else. Maybe they'd care if you destroy the courthouse, but again, they're not paying for, like, any kind of the destruction or whatever happens, if it does turn into a mob thing, or if it does turn into a riot. I don't know exactly the terms of when it goes from just assembly to riot, but I think that has to do with whenever property is damaged. Why would they care about private? Like, even if you believe, and I'm definitely sympathetic to the idea that the government's very much involved with like corporations and everything, like they don't care that their business partners' stuff is getting fucked up. It doesn't matter to them. It just means that corporation will give them more money so it doesn't happen again. So I don't really get, I guess I should say, I don't get peaceful protests, and I don't think that the violent protests really do anything good. I don't think the peaceful protests do anything. I think the only really time, as far as, again, in America, like it seems like people are actually doing something, is whenever you're civilly disobeying. What is it? Civil disobedience, civilly disobeying, I guess could be the phrase there. Where instead of like protesting at something bad that happened or a new law, instead of protesting against it, you just disobey it kind of en masse. And I remember there was a lot of stuff in Philly. I mean, N.A. Poe would go around. I think he did one in Pittsburgh too. I just was too much of a pussy to go to. I was like, no, fuck, I'm not going smoking weed in front of the cops. Like, why would I do that? Doesn't, like, I don't care that much. Like, this is not that big of an issue that you can't inhale a drug. Like, I get that it's, like, yeah, it should be your right, but so should anything else. You should be able to inject yourself with bleach if you want to. I'm not going to stop you. But who cares that much? Like, they're going to eventually give it. It's just they have to figure out how to tax it. Why make that big of a deal of it? Why? The only cool thing about weed is that it's illegal. Why take that away? Anyway, but I mean, for everything I just said, I think that actually did do something, because they were like, no, fuck you, we're just going to smoke weed here. You can arrest us and we're going to keep on doing it. And that is actually changing something, because at least it does exactly what these like protest marches or any of this stuff is supposed to do, where we're bringing attention to an issue, but then it actually causes more issues. Like so the police have to work more and just cordon off your march area. So you're just getting them paid. Why? How is that hurtful to them? This isn't like they're not. It's not like the police can. And the police, we should be going out and doing. Like, I guess it's good because it keeps those fuckers from driving around just pulling people over for going over the speed limit, or just like, it's not like they're around actually doing very helpful things. They're breaking up domestic arguments and stuff like that. That'd be the best thing. It's not like there's that many murders in Pittsburgh that a couple cops can't go down and do this, but. It's not harming if you, and that is part of the issue, is you can't really civilly disobey over someone being murdered by the cops. There's not really something that you can do and then not get yourself thrown in prison for your life that is really stopping any of that. But that's why something like the smoke down prohibition, and as much as I haven't paid attention to it for a while, I haven't followed him for a while, but Adam Kokesh, when he would do a protest, when he was involved with some of the smoke down ones, it would be the civil disobedience. And I think that a lot of that comes from, like, I mean, he's not the first person who did it, but like the popularity of it and spreading it and showing how it could help. And I think part of this was because enough people had gotten to the point where, like, well, no, this is fucking stupid to have different, like, segregated, like, public spaces, was Martin Luther King and then all the people who worked with him and just doing stuff like, well, okay, we'll do a sit-in. Like, instead of marching to, I mean, they did do marches too, but instead of, I don't know why I'm telling you this guy, like, you guys obviously learned about this. If you figured out how to use a computer and listen to this podcast, you've probably heard this before, but the sit downs where instead of protesting against the law, instead of doing that, you just go, no, fuck it, we're going to break the law. We're going to show that we're being peaceful while we're doing it. So, like, the best thing that could happen, and this is where, like, the strategic peaceful protesting comes in, is like the best thing that can happen is somebody hits you or somebody does something like that. So you make yourself an issue and you try to get them to do something, because then you get most of public sentiment given to you versus the cops, or versus in like Martin, the white people trying to force them out of that business. or anything like that. And I know I talked about getting kicked out of businesses, although it was for a political affiliation when I was talking. I still, and I guess I do kind of have to defend that. I would still say that I think a business has a right to remove somebody from their building if they want to. I think it's stupid. And this is like, I don't know. There's definitely an issue with somebody who's so far removed or so angry or so scared of something or so whatever that they're willing to throw away profit. Because I imagine like you're probably running your business for profit. You're not just giving stuff away. You're not like, oh, I don't want to give this person free thing. It's like, no, you don't even want their money. So there's an issue with you. And yeah, I'm fine with you. Like, I would rather you lose money than you have to serve them and still make money off of them, if that makes any sense. But I think stuff like this, stuff like where you're actually breaking a law, breaking whatever, because you're attacking a specific thing. You're not just going, well, okay, violence is bad, Trump is bad, whatever. You're going and say like Trump, say he did the travel ban, make an underground railroad or something like that. Do like, or come back in an era. I don't know how you could do it. Like, that's the problem. Go get a boat, bring people back, because you standing outside of a building saying no deportations and rhyme. That's the other thing. I get that it's so people can keep on screaming it over and over again, but you don't need to make your things rhyme. And the more you make your things rhyme, the more they sound like kind of like a sing-songy, like, oh, okay, this is all fun together. Like, we're just doing this as a public experience. And actually, I was reading something when I was looking this up before, and I'll see if I still have the page up or not, but it was referencing it was about that, and there was a quote from somebody, from Eric Hobsbawm, Hobsbawm, whatever, where, now I guess this isn't truthful, but neither has the rest of this podcast been, but he's talking about mass demonstrations, and he mentions this, and this is interesting, that, I don't know how interesting it is, maybe it isn't, but apart from sex, public demonstration is the highest point of where you have a combination of bodily experience and intense emotion. So I get the whole, like, you have to just make it a chant, and this is a whole, like, a big experience, but I think that is a lot of what these people are doing that for, if versus it actually being about changing something where maybe they think it's going to work, but that's not even the most important thing. The most important thing is the experience of that, and is the experience of, well, we got together and we did something, and we actually made a difference. And again, I don't know what it's like in other countries. I don't know what as far as it's going to versus other places. But United States has very much a history of, we make some noise, we say some things, we go, hey, tax enough already, or hey, don't kill any more kids in the desert, or hey, don't do that stuff. But you don't really listen unless it's something like weed, where they're eventually like, yeah, no, here, let us tax all of it, but here, you can have that. Oh, abortions, yes, here, but we get to tax that. And oh, same-sex marriage, yes, no, here, you can have that. Like, we can make money off of all these things. Not to say that they're not an important issue, but as far as importance, I think, versus just murdering people the world over. Now, I have to look back and think about everything I said, and I think that still holds up. As far as like murdering people the world over and kind of basically running the world as far as how influences and just money in general, I feel is a little more important, and those things never are addressed because of demonstrations. Nothing really seems to change. If anything, they get worse. We just the violence in America goes down over the history, and like we have less violent things happening, I feel like we're just exporting it. We get all of our violence that we need to see as people just kind of what's the word? Voyeuristically, or through voyeurism. There's an old like Tool song called it's not Right in Two, but it's I'll think about it eventually. But the idea is we all kind of do like to see these things. We like to see, like, that's, at least for me, I will speak from something. There is something exciting about watching like violence, and I think there's probably, there is an excitement in committing violence. That's why people get so seem like a crowd doesn't work like an individual person. A crowd doesn't work like a person who's thinking about things. A crowd gets violent, gets worse, because everyone's kind of just feeding off of that. We're in, like, this is our side, that's their side, fuck them, like, and then it just builds and builds and builds, because there is a certain amount, there is something in us that likes conflict and likes the idea of being on the one side against the other one. I've definitely talked about this before, where one of the biggest glues for a group is just to hate the other group. So all of that to say, I think that a lot of these demonstrations, a lot of things, while, like, a lot of things, the intention or the idea is probably in the right place. The idea isn't bad, but as far as the execution and the actual net results, and if things do change or anything, like, what, we got body cams on the police and they're still shooting people. They're just like, yep, no, here's the video now. Now you can see the guy get murdered. The overall impact of most of them doesn't really seem to be very much. I'm going to run another commercial here to break up this just super exciting and fun podcast that I'm doing right now, but I'll be back and I'll try to maybe lighten it up a little bit.
Hey guys, today's show is brought to you by Chronologic.network. Chronologic is an Ethereum-based project that aims to solve time-related problems on the blockchain. Through Chronologic's 3 core products, the Ethereum alarm clock, debt smart contracts, and the day token minting mechanism, they solve the problems of payment scheduling, crypto loan time constraints, and unstable token launches. Find out more at Chronologic.network.
Okay, and this is like the last quarter, I guess. I didn't really do this in a half, so maybe a lot of people quit before that episode, that ad ran anyway, but hopefully you guys are still there. But I'm going to do it anyway, so it's not like it's really helping to think in the future that people are listening. But I do think, like I said, there are good ideas, and they are beneficial to have. And I one of the first episodes I did on this was where I was talking about, like, I think overall it's probably better for a society to have more, as far as like being cohesive and sticking together and people having a general sense of belonging together, which I'm not necessarily for. I don't really, but if you want to have that, if you want to have a cohesive mass of people who generally mostly get along and generally have some kind of a support system in their life, traditional, like, conservative, like, not traditional, but older style ideas, or like being a little bit more mistrustful of, being more trustful of the people around you, and then being less trustful of, like, the government or somebody miles and miles away who could more easily be leading you astray. But I've just been speaking away from the mic, so this is definitely be louder. I think that while I was saying, like, as far as the societal norms, it's good to have a more, like, traditional kind of, I don't know if I want to say conservative, but a more traditional kind of value system. While at the same time, I do think that the best kind of counterculture is definitely we just need to make people aware of. I like the idea. I think it's good to have, and this sounds a little bit too much like another South Park episode where they have people are arguing. I think it's about the Iraq War, because I think it was way back in 2003, 2004, and people are, like, arguing over it, and then they have a concert at the end where it's rock and roll is like the side of like the people who are like, we don't need to go to war and we should be peaceful, and then country is singing about how like, well, we need to attack everybody and we need to be strong, and they make the point where they're like, well, we need this side, we need country music, and we need pro-war Americans to kind of scare the rest of the world and to kind of make it so that we don't look like a bunch of pussies. I think that's probably like a quote. And then we need rock, we need we need pacifism, we need all that stuff to make us not look like complete monsters. While that's not exactly accurate, because I'm sure it sounds like we just normally we seem like monsters to the rest of the world in general. At least our government does. But I like the idea of, yeah, for a society, we probably should have like families, I guess, like pushing like a family more, I think, than we do versus pushing a state. I don't really know, but as far as like help, like pushing people into something that would build the nation. And this is hard for me to talk about because I can't even say, like, I don't dislike anything about like the people in the country now. I don't have any issue with how that is versus any other time, because I don't have this idea in my head of like, well, back in the 1920s we didn't trust the government and we really helped. I don't really think that's necessarily any better. But I think it's good to have at least a mistrust of people outside of people you know, and like a mistrust, like not a hatred, but well, I don't really know about this. I don't really know about banks. I don't really know about just kind of this random government guy that just comes in and tells me he's helping me. But I do think it's good for that society that is mistrustful to have a group that comes in and says, hey, well, you still have to have a heart. You still have to kind of pay attention to all this stuff. You still have to be worried about the police killing you. You still have to, and maybe not even you, maybe you need to be worried about them killing a specific class of people. You need to be worried about the military kind of just go. You can't just trust the military to always do the best thing and just send your kids in there and say it's the work of Jesus to go do that. You need something to kind of break up how kind of practical you want everything to be. But at the same time, I think if we're going to do anything as far as making a difference in the world or like actually changing something, we need to remember that like these aren't special. Like as far as like the kid who got shot in Pittsburgh, run away from the police, like that just happens all the time. It's not I mean, I have no problem with commemorating him. I have no problem with remembering him, but don't stop thinking about it whenever you stop thinking about him, because it doesn't just happen to one person. It happens to everybody. It might as well, because it not necessarily getting shot by the cops, but just an abuse of power and the kind of fear that they just inspire in almost everybody is a problem. And maybe focus on that. Maybe don't, like, I've never called the police. I've never called the cops. I've been in accidents. I don't get them involved because I just don't, I'm like, I can probably deal with this. I don't need to have a guy walking around with a taser and a gun on top. Like, it just has never seemed like a good idea to me. And I'm the white, if you've ever seen the Human BT, I'm very, very white. Like, I look like I definitely, like, in an Aryan Nation prison gang, I look like the pretty boy. I like blonde, blue eye, skin that it burns. But and it's not necessarily just for me. I don't want to get involved with other people, but I don't want to involve other people in that, regardless of whoever they are. But even for me, I don't want to deal with those guys. And I specifically cut my hair to look like them just so they don't bother me. But I still am just wary of ever involving them. And maybe we should focus more on that. Maybe we should focus more on, hey, let me go talk to my neighbor instead of calling the police because it's loud. Hey, let me go talk to this guy that I just rear-ended instead of immediately bring the police. Maybe just unless, and again, I don't know what I'm going to do in like a life or death situation, but unless it's that, don't call the police. I mean, because somebody else is going to do it anyway. It's not like you're going to need to, probably. But don't involve them in stuff. Just like if we do want to do something, if we want to reduce, I think, and this wouldn't get rid of everything because there are violent crimes, but you could at least lessen the amount of damage they can do to people if you just don't involve them. And that's not even civil disobedience. That's just not calling the police. But yeah, I don't really know where exactly all this episode went. I'm going to have to try to remember where to put that ad in. But again, you can follow me on Baker's Dozen 93. Zach got me a couple more followers. I think I don't really remember how many exactly, but thank you all. Maybe you'll see that I put this out. Maybe you'll listen to this episode from the retweet I send out, but we'll see. Yeah, I got a decent amount, like 12 people. Well, fuck Zach anyway. Follow him at Zach Vol. Follow me at Baker's Dozen 93. Let me know if you like the episode. Let me know if you have anything you want me to talk about. And this has been Tim's 2 cents. I don't remember if I said that before. Episode 19. Thank you and have a good week.